Good evening, all of you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'd like to thank the Indian Institute of Human Settlements, Zorab, Gamat, and his whole team, and for inviting me here. It's very special. It's not my city. I'm from Bombay, so I particularly appreciate you making the effort to be here. So I'm going to be talking about creative spaces in South Asian cinema. I especially widened the ambit a little because I think, because I've been working with festivals, I've been really privileged to have access to films that a lot of people aren't able to see in theaters. So I'm kind of having clips with illustrating points I'm making. So I'm talking of spaces in different contexts. So I'm talking of physical and geographical spaces. I'm talking of emotional spaces, of personal freedom, of liberty, of emotional spaces, spaces in the head, international borders, liquid borders. What happens when nature erodes your land, erodes your nationality, erodes your identity? So it goes off into other stuff. We look at spaces that look at metaphorical and philosophical spaces that span the cosmos, so all kinds of stuff. So it's not actually heavy, it's lots of fun because I'm going to have clips explaining points that I want to make. And I'm going to shoot three clips of three films from South Asian countries. So from Nepal and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, which we don't usually get to see, and they're really very good films. I'm going to start with personal spaces. So I think it's to do with personal liberty and freedom, actually. So I'd start off with Bollywood because that's the most accessible and popular, and people get to see these films normally, so it's not obscure programmers that get to see these things. I'd like to talk about a film that I really liked, that I think a lot of you may have seen this year, called Queen. I thought it was really good fun. And I think one of the most wonderful things about that film is really talking of personal freedom in a way that you're not used to seeing, and least of all in a mainstream film. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's about an NRI guy from London who dumps his wife a day before their wedding, and she's like a kind of middle-class, low-middle-class Delhi woman. Quite lovely, actually, played by Kangana Ranaut. He thinks she's not hip enough, and I think she does the most wonderful thing that ever happened to a woman in all of Indian cinema. She goes off alone on a honeymoon. Now, isn't that fab? So she goes off to Paris and has a blast. She shacks up with a lot of guys that she doesn't actually sleep with. She has lots of fun, discovers all kinds of other women whom she would never have normally met in the course of her life, and comes back really a very confident person, confident of herself. And I think she does another wonderful thing that it's very rare to see in Bollywood. And what's wonderful is like the high point of the film is a totally throwaway moment, and Bollywood is not at all used to understatement by a long mile. And the climax of the film is really wonderful. So she's coming back from the airport, and her parents are taking her back home from the airport, and just wait for 2 minutes, and she goes to see this guy who had dumped her. She very quietly gives back the ring, gives him a big hug, and says, "Thank you." So I think forgiveness is a space of real empowerment and of actually liberation. I think that was so delicately done, and a totally throwaway moment. Like, do many I was just getting to, like something from the baniya, and just carries on home. So it's not this big thing that, masala melodrama that it ends in. I think its power was in liberating her, but in the nicest way. It's not like, see, I told you, da-da-da. There was none of that energy, and I think it transmuted these big emotions in a very quiet moment, and I think that was what made it really special. So can we take a look at the clip, please, from